What's good, y'all, bro? Yo, y'all been waiting for this video for I don't even know how long, bro. But I told y'all I was gonna react to Woodie's Dirty Deed, the documentary, The Deadly Secrets of 1994, bro. We finally here, bro. We finally about to react to it, bro. For this video, bro, we gonna need at least 30 likes. Cause it's 30 minutes for me, we gonna need 30 likes on this video, bro. Y'all said this is a movie, so we gonna check it out. I ain't gonna talk too much, cause I feel like I'm talking too much already. We gonna get straight into it. And yeah, let's get it.
If you were to listen to the lyrics of a rapper named Woodie from Northern California, you might notice frequent references to the year 1994.
We get the pistol chamber smoking. We trying to tell you motherfuckers back in 94. We keep our pistol cocked up and they up ready for war. We get the yacht breaking them up in 94. Got enemies trapped up, homeboys locked up, sucker.
What exactly happened in 1994? Almost 30 years later, a shroud of mystery surrounds this year, so we decided to look into it. We hope that this video will, finally, provide some answers. Here's everything we uncovered. So we might as well start at the present, and that's easy, because for Gabriel Snoop Roberson, the present has more or less stayed the same for the last 28 years. Since March 19th, 1995, when he was just 17 years old, Gabe Roberson has spent every single day of his life inside the cell of a California jail or prison. Gabe was convicted of a murder that happened decades ago, during a time in California where gang violence was responsible for thousands of murders every year, and seized the attention of not just state leaders, but the national media and the White House. By contrast, nowadays, virtually all of the deadly violence of the 1990s is long forgotten, and many of the people who went to prison for murder or manslaughter around that time have been released from prison too. Neither of those are true in Gabe's case. He's stuck in a cell with no chance at parole for years, and in all likelihood will remain behind bars for decades to come. But at the same time, Gabe's case is far from forgotten, and if you go to Antioch, California, and talk to folks, you'll find that many strongly believe Gabe has lost his entire adulthood over a crime he never committed. In this video, we'll attempt to explain the history behind his case, the gang beefs behind the deadly shooting that ruined a girl's coming-of-age party, and how the voice of just one man was able to keep the case of Gabriel Snoop Roberson from being forgotten.
Here's how the average man's life would change if he never saw an ad again. Day 1, he would install...
Let's go back to the early 1990s in East Contra Costa County, a place we've covered before in another video. Nowadays, the area's biggest city of Antioch is known as a haven for drugs, crime, gang violence, and a notorious kidnapping by a child molester. But back in the 1990s, Antioch sat at the crossroads between being a farm town and a quiet bedroom community, and was little more than a blip on the radar to folks who lived outside of the immediate area. Its neighboring city of Pittsburgh, however, had a different reputation back then. Pittsburgh was a high-crime area, and a place known for shootings, robberies, gang brawls, prostitution, open-air drug dealing, and practically every other crime you can think of. And while Bloods and Crips violence grabbed the nation's attention in the Los Angeles area, in Northern California there's a different kind of color war going on. Norteños and the Sureños, translated simply to Northerners and Southerners, who claimed red and blue, respectively, and carved out territory through cliques that formed organically throughout the Bay Area, Central Valley, and coastal communities. During the 1990s, a few such subsets rose to prominence around the same time. They were largely made up of kids who were just a few years past puberty, yet their lifestyles and the crimes they committed were well beyond what you'd expect from a group of kids. The prominent Sureño gang in Pittsburgh at that time was Los Monkeys 13, or LMT, whose territory centered around West Boulevard. Teens' parents who were from Los Angeles or who had traveled from that area were more likely to join LMT. But if you were an up-and-coming Norteño, you probably ended up in either the Pittsburgh-based East Bay Locos or the Antioch gang known as the West 20th Street Norteños, a name bestowed upon them by a local newspaper, also called West Twomp for short.
The media's bringing plenty of feedback and us look like monsters. Leveling us with 20
Members of these two groups were known to intermingle, and the violence between both Norteño cliques and the LMT became almost routine. That brings us to April 16th, 1994, when a 16-year-old Pittsburgh resident named George Garcia decided to take advantage of his father going a couple hours south to San Jose and invite friends over to his home on 138B Madeline Street. He asked about a half dozen people to come over, but one of them, a guy named Goofy Eddie Segura, who drove a distinctive 1979 Burgundy Monte Carlo, circulated a flyer advertising the party around two local high schools, so a lot more guests were bound to show up. Among them were brothers Carlos Blackbird Ramirez and his brother Ray, as well as Gabe Roberson and a host of other EBL and West 20th Street gang members. For you see, George Garcia was a Norteño and was hosting a party with many Norteño guests, despite living right in the heart of Sureño territory. They soon learned that they weren't the only ones who knew about the party that night. A little before 10 p.m., a blue sedan drove by, and someone hung a gun out the window and opened fire at the house party, striking Ray Ramirez in the side. He fell, hitting his head on the concrete, while the bullet instantly paralyzed him from the waist down. His 17-year-old brother, Blackbird, witnessed the entire thing and was obviously incredibly distressed. 5 years later, after lingering in poor health, Ray Ramirez would pass away shortly after being admitted into a local hospital. Gabe Roberson was...
This crazy. Yeah, I see why y'all told me to react to this. But, like, you see what I'm saying? How, like, this is wild, bro. Them parties, bro, especially if you involved in that type of, you in the gangs and stuff like that. I just feel like having them big parties in general, they never end well for real. But you see how close the territory was? The party, it said the party location was like right here, right? In the opposition, like the other side, is like right here. You hand out those many flyers, somebody from that side is gonna know it's a party going on. And then boom. Now he didn't, the shooter didn't kill that person on the scene. It paralyzed him. And then a few years later, that person died due to the, the bad conditions. It was like, but this is why I say, like, yeah, I could tell this one's deep. But we gonna get back into it. I ain't gonna talk too much. We gonna get back into it, though. I'm gonna say what I gotta say, like, after.
Standing right next to Ray Ramirez when he was shot, but didn't stick around too long after the cops got there. He would later explain that he'd decided he'd had enough for one night and simply walked on home while replaying the traumatic events of the evening in his head while other Norteños from the party plotted retaliation. This incident set off a chain of events that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. It just so happened that on the same evening as the party on Madeline Street, a family was hosting a coming-of-age party for 15-year-old Cristina Ramirez at the Veterans Hall in the neighboring town of Antioch. Known as a quinceanera, the celebration was set to go well into the night, fully catered with food, beer, and music. Quinceaneras are typically joyful events, full of life and dancing, where the young lady who's being celebrated gets to help plan her own party in great detail. In this case, Cristina made a seemingly innocuous decision that might have factored into the tragedy that was about to unfold that night. She decided that guests would wear sky blue, and that the room should be adorned with white and blue balloons. Simultaneously, Cristina's father hired a band, but gave the musicians specific instructions. They were absolutely not allowed to invite anyone else to the party, despite that being a somewhat common practice for hired bands. Unfortunately, the band ignored this request from the Ramirez family, and at least one member invited some buddies to enjoy the fun, including an LMT Sureño named Cristobal Lozano. 2 years later, Lozano would be arrested along with 4 other Sureños on suspicion of killing 18-year-old Luis Cano in Antioch, and he'd later take a plea deal for an assault with a firearm charge. But on this night, police were pretty certain that he'd had nothing to do with the shooting at the party that paralyzed Ray Ramirez. And the 2 suspects who police eventually identified, Joel Pirate Tapia and Baltimore Arroyo were never charged with shooting Ray. But they were known LMT Sureños who were both implicated in other unrelated acts of gang violence. At any rate, the Quinceanera was coming to an end a little before 1 a.m. on the morning of the 17th, when party guests noticed a subtle disruption. A young man, whom no one invited, opened the door to the Veterans Hall and peeked inside, appearing to carefully inspect each table of attendees. He appeared to fixate on Cristobal Lozano. Then he closed the door and left. Multiple attendees would later identify this person as Goofy Eddie Segura, who had arrived in his Monte Carlo with a carload full of norteños. Around the same time, one of Christina's friends came up to her and told her, "There's a bunch of norteños outside." Christina replied that someone should tell an adult. But before long, 2 more young men burst into the Veterans Hall, one armed with a revolver, the other with a sawed-off shotgun. They appeared to be aiming at Lozano, who was standing near the band, when they opened fire. Lozano escaped injury completely, but 5 people were hit, including 2 of Christina's uncles and 3 other party guests. Alfredo Gutierrez, an uninvited guest whose brother was in the band, was one of the men to be hit by a bullet. He would later recount, quote, "I just couldn't breathe when I got hit. It felt like someone hit me with a bat on my ribs." A couple feet away from Alfredo, 26-year-old Jorge Franco fell to the ground and keeled over, quickly bleeding to death from a gunshot wound that struck him directly in the heart. In the span of a few moments, this coming-of-age party had been turned into a gangland bloodbath, and almost none of the party guests saw the shooters as anything more than a couple of shadowy figures who left as quickly as they'd arrived. Despite the plethora of witnesses, the possible connection between the earlier shooting in Pittsburgh and the fact that Goofy Eddie had been positively identified just moments before the actual shooting, no arrests were made in the case for years, and youth violence in East Contra Costa County continued. 2 months after Franco was killed, an underage East Bay Locos member named Gabriel Olage was arrested for stabbing a 17-year-old Hayward boy at the Sun Valley Mall in Concord, California, after they both yelled out their names of their respective rival gangs. Olage was sentenced to a stint in the notorious
So far, 11 minutes in, and look. So far, we 11 minutes in, right? And we didn't even get to Woodie yet. Now, this is important because this is like everything, I guess, leading up to. It's 11 minutes in. We still got about 20 minutes. So, dang, but this tells me that everyone's deep, way deeper than what like I could ever, imagine. So, I'm very intrigued, bro. I'm liking it so far. RP to everybody that it's a lot of violence for sure, definitely. Like they shooting up, parties, innocent people getting hit. That's sad, bro.
California Youth Authority and released shortly before his 21st birthday. But just 2 months after his release, Olage was shot in the neck and killed in Pittsburgh.
Damn.
The suspected shooter, 18-year-old Alfonso Calderon, was identified as a fellow norteño who Olage allegedly mistook for a rival and confronted with a knife. The shooting was ruled self-defense. In August 1994, George Garcia would become implicated in a homicide in Antioch, alongside another teen named Victor Ayala. According to police, media reports, and Garcia's own statement, Ayala fatally shot 18-year-old Philip Adrian Nolan, while Garcia fired off a sawed-off shotgun. Ayala was charged with murder, while Garcia was hit with attempted murder charges. But their cases were handled in juvenile court, where penalties are much lower and the proceedings stay out of the public's eye.
Journey of Monarch is now available on both PC and mobile with Google Play Games.
Nolan's death was preceded by the killing of a 14-year-old Richard Orellana in nearby Concord just 2 weeks earlier, which was also chalked up to the Norteño-Sureño conflict.
when they hit us. Back and forth, we all die. Fuck it, in my northerners, I trust the rise of...
The following month, at a bonfire market in downtown Antioch, 3 people were shot by a young man who first fired at a person he was arguing with, but then appeared to just shoot randomly into nearby crowds. Luckily, no one was killed. One evening in January 1995, at a Taco Bell in Antioch alongside Highway 4, someone in a yellow Malibu full of norteños fired several shots into a BMW after one of the passengers yelled something at them. One person was struck in the hip and another cut by broken glass, but nobody was killed. This time, the suspect was identified as an Antioch native named Ryan Wood, whose red-tinted hair may have made him easy for eyewitnesses to identify. Wood was spotted by the police shortly after the shooting, but escaped following a car and foot chase. Wood's residence in nearby Clayton was raided by police, and they seized photographs and other evidence before ultimately arresting him on attempted murder charges. Wood was able to avoid prison, thanks in part to a lack of witness cooperation, but was required to stay away from the Antioch area as a term of probation. In just a few years, though, Ryan Wood would be known around the world for being influenced by his upbringing in the city of Antioch, and the Taco Bell shooting would later be immortalized in a popular song. In November 1995, yet another teenager was killed in a shooting, this time just 1 block away from Antioch City Hall. 17-year-old Martin Maya was shot in the head, abdomen, and arm, but survived until the next day when he was pronounced dead at a local hospital. 2 others were injured. This time, police identified a suspect within hours of the shooting, and detectives would later claim that the same man was responsible for the Bonfire Market shooting nearly a year earlier. It was Carlos Blackbird Ramirez, Ray Ramirez's brother, who had apparently spun out of control after that fateful night on April 16th the year before, after watching his brother suffer.
Raymond, in 94 April, he got shot, started a big old thing. A whole bunch of stuff happened. Brother got shot and just went crazy. He give a fuck, no.
That was the beginning of his downfall, Blackbird's probation officer would later tell a local newspaper. Before that, he wasn't a serious criminal, just a gangbanger having fun. A judge issued a warrant for Blackbird's arrest. The only problem was, around this time, Blackbird seemingly vanished. Not Antioch police or other local agencies, nor even the U.S. Marshals could find him, and they theorized that he had fled to Mexico.
Blackbird is gone, but the funk don't stop.
While the search for Blackbird continued, police were trying like crazy to gather enough evidence to justify charging him with the murder of Jorge Franco at the Veterans Hall. But so far, they were striking out. They were certain that Blackbird was the man wielding a sawed-off shotgun, but as the manhunt showed no signs of ending, Detective Leonard Orman of the Antioch Police Department concentrated his efforts on identifying the second gunman. And by February 1996, Orman was pretty sure that it was Gabe Snoop Roberson who had fired the revolver at other party guests. Orman traveled down to meet Snoop at Susanville Prison, where he had been serving a sentence for home burglary and robbery charges. Snoop had been behind bars since the year before, when he was still just 17, but now, as a very young adult, had been transferred to the California prison system. Their conversation went like this. Orman spoke with Snoop casually about Ray Ramirez being paralyzed, but then his tone changed. He started grilling Gabe about the Quinceanera, telling him he'd never see his 2-year-old son outside of prison ever again, and that if he admitted guilt, he'd be dealt with more leniently. Gabe offered denial after denial, then completely broke down, effectively ending the conversation. Orman returned back to Antioch without a confession, but 9 months later, the Contra Costa District Attorney decided he didn't need one. Gabe was charged with 1 count of murder for Jorge Franco, and 4 counts of attempted murder for the party guests who were in the line of fire.
There was a shooting. I was never questioned. Almost 2 years went by. I was in prison for something else. It's the only time I'd ever been locked up in my life. And they came and questioned me. I just told them I didn't know. I knew I didn't do it, but I didn't know who did it. But they told me if I didn't want to cooperate, I had to be placed in the hole, so I got placed in the hole. The whole administrative segregation is what they call it. They lock you in the cell and you stay in your cell by yourself all day. Basically, it's isolate you. My parole date, the detective came back and told me I was being charged.
The case was strung together thusly. One party guest had identified Gabe from a photo lineup and repeated the ID during the preliminary hearing, while a second man had told police he saw Gabe outside the Veterans Hall with a gun near Goofy Eddie's Monte Carlo, then later claimed he wasn't so sure. It was that and a whole pile of gang evidence, detailing not just Gabe's ties to the West 20th Street Norteños, but other crimes committed by other gang members, including some like George Garcia, who turned away from the gang after the Philip Nolan homicide and was now a government cooperator. Ironically, prosecutors theorized that Franco's killers had gotten the guns from Garcia's co-defendant, Victor Ayala, who loaned them to other Norteños while he was in jail for killing Philip Nolan. One thing jurors were not allowed to see was the conversation between Detective Orman and Gabe, as Judge Wayne Westover explained the offers of leniency in an attempt to elicit a confession had gone too far. Quote, "I think the officer just went one step beyond with what he's done here. I've heard his interviews before and upheld them, but I think this one is different." Gabe was brought back to the Contra Costa County Jail, and his trial started in early 1997. As expected, prosecutor McGregor Scott brought forth both gang members and several party guests as witnesses. One, a former Norteño named Miguel Fregoso, who'd claimed that he'd seen Gabe outside the Veterans Hall, now waffled. Quote, "I don't remember. I don't know. It kind of looked like him, but I'm not sure." Only one person positively identified Gabe as the shooter in court. He was Alfredo Ramirez, a 46-year-old Salinas resident who had been shot in the chest, and was both Christina and Jorge's uncle. Ramirez did not waver in his identification, other than insisting that he did not feel the effects of the beer he drank that night because he was dancing. But towards the end of the trial, a seemingly insignificant detail came out. As the trial was ending, Detective Orman testified that Alfredo Ramirez had initially offered a description of the shooter with one very specific detail that could not have applied to Gabe. He had distinctive blondish red or reddish blonde hair. Nevertheless, Alfredo had identified Gabe in both a photo lineup and in court, so when jurors began to deliberate, they were heavily leaning towards guilt. But days into deliberation, there was still one holdout who didn't have faith that Alfredo was sober enough to identify the shooter. A mistrial was declared, and McGregor Scott was taken off the case and replaced by another deputy district attorney, John Cope. At Gabe's second trial 5 months later, his luck ran out. He was convicted of murder, all of the attempted murders, gang charges, and enhancements for use of a gun, leaving him with a sentence of life and then some.
My homie Snoop gotta be deceased and come back 5 times before he's released. At age 18, swiped off the streets and said about these punk police convicted of...
Quote, "I'm glad he got it because that's what he deserves," Oscar Franco, Jorge's brother, told reporters.
Leave the desk job behind and train for a career that fits your lifestyle. At Universal Technical Institute,
Gabe was returned to prison, and when the door slammed shut behind him, there was no reason to think that his case would ever get widely spoken of or paid attention to again. It had received minimal media coverage, with reporters in the area much more intrigued by the manhunt for Blackbird. But the following year, that changed drastically. In early 1998, Ryan Wood, the West 20th Street Norteño who'd been involved in the Antioch Taco Bell shooting, kicked off his career as a rapper, and from then on was forever known by his stage name, Woodie. Woodie took interest in breakdancing and hip-hop at an early age and started rapping in high school. Despite some significant hurdles, he was white in an era where Vanilla Ice had made a mockery of white rappers. He was self-funded, his hometown lacked major street credibility at that time, He produced his own beats, and he lacked mainstream acceptance or distribution. His debut album, Yacht Influenced, began generating a buzz. Woodie started selling the album out of his own trunk in the spirit of a Bay Area rap entrepreneurial spirit that became widespread in the early 2000s, but eventually started stocking the shelves of local record shops. In the blink of an eye, Yacht Influence was being sold out of Tower Records, Sam Goody, and other major chains. Woodie's songs were transparently authentic, the musings of a young man caught up in a treacherous world of gang violence, torn between unwavering loyalty to his friends while contemplating how and when he'll face the consequences of his lifestyle. He spoke not just about gang violence, but the dilemma of being caught between the streets and his own family, and also spoke about real-life events with piercing accuracy.
These are real events that happen. I'm talking about real people, homeboys of mine. This isn't a fictional tape. This is real things. This is my side of it. This is how I...
On the album Demons in My Sleep, released through the major distributor Koch Records, Woodie included a song called Tales of a Killer, with a verse that recounted the events of the Taco Bell shooting that mirrors the police reports in that case almost exactly. There's another common theme in Woodie's music: Gabriel, Snoop, Roberson. In song lyrics, album liner notes, and in interviews with the media, Woodie insisted that Snoop was innocent and praised him for his, quote, loyalty. Woodie also had a message for Snoop. Quote, "We got that appeal lawyer coming."
That's not me. That's the video. That's
He's up locked in a prison cell. Fight for an appeal and get him out while he still has his health. I'm trying to make enough money to hire Johnny Cochran. Removing innocent prisoner from the walls.
As Woodie's fan base grew and the phenomenon of anonymous internet forums began to spread in the early 2000s, fans across the United States grew curious about this person, Snoop, that they kept hearing about in songs. The local newspaper even took notice and aired an interview where Woodie gave his side to not just Snoop's case, but several other high-profile incidents in East Contra Costa County. The cops and the DA might have won in court, but Woodie was winning on public relations. However, this had no bearing on Snoop's case. He lost his appeal and continued to serve out his life sentence, with no other legal options available. As Woodie's rap career was just taking off, yet another tragedy occurred in July of 1998. After a manhunt that lasted 4 years, Blackbird surfaced in Antioch, but he would never end up in police custody. He allegedly showed up at the home of his ex-girlfriend, took their 2 kids, and barricaded himself inside the house for what turned out to be a multi-day standoff. In the end, both Blackbird and his daughters were dead from gunshot wounds. Police...
so sad, bro. Yo, this story runs deep, bro. Like, I see why y'all kept on telling me react to it, bro. React to it, bro. I see why, bro. Yo, this crazy. Damn, Bar Pete. Damn, bro.
Police announced that Blackbird had killed the girls and then turned the...
Oh, he killed the children?
It was the second such standoff in Antioch to end this way within a relatively short period of time. But friends and family members of Blackbird have rejected this version of events, with Woodie insisting that Blackbird and his children were killed by police, pointing to the fact that he had suffered 2 fatal gunshot wounds to the head as evidence of this. Perhaps to push back against this narrative, Antioch police released tapes of the standoff. While those tapes were released to the media, no versions have surfaced online, and the Antioch Police Department says they have since been destroyed. All that's left are online articles where journalists recounted what they heard. Woodie was devastated by the death of Blackbird.
They're trying to lock all of us up, they might have killed the babies and loads. They knew that Snoop didn't kill nobody and sentenced him to the most. No, got them pick a start as Blackbird tonight. I'm chopping it up with my big homie, he might be gone, but he's still in my life. Impossible to separate us, but one of the same spirit. His flesh is gone, but his soul is on, and when he speaks to me, I hear it.
Trying to get game out, homie. Wasn't for that, I'll be with you right there, without a second thought.
Blackbird, dead and
As the years ticked on, Woodie's rap career continued forward, and his fan base got bigger and bigger. He got a major record deal from Koch Records, but also continued putting albums out on his own label, East Coco Records, and became known as a local legend. He continued to rap about Snoop's loyalty and how he was wrongfully convicted, with lyrics that seemed to hint at the identity of the real perpetrator.
Just as love, I can't appreciate enough the days like this I live to see. If it wasn't for a homie like Snoop, Snoop would be me. And although Blackbird ain't here to share it in, but didn't have a clue that I would soon be gunning for revenge. For my enemies that paralyze and slowly seal the fate of my blood brother. Wait, what the Bible gotta say? If my family's hurting anyway, somebody's gotta pay for ex homies. Right? Police say forever Snoop's locked down. He's innocent, you can ask the yacht town. I do my devour, strip that OG from his reputation in the late night hour show. Shower, let the situation sour with fuck. But ain't no stopping the popping that gets to dropping these punks. I found my...
Around 2002, Woodie moved to Paradise, California, a small town in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada, where he started meeting new people. Shortly thereafter, Woodie's music started to take on a darker tone. Lyrics about gangbanging and partying were overshadowed by lyrics about government conspiracies, mental health, and otherwise morose themes. But then, on March 7th, 2007, Woodie died of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot. As rap fans mourned the death of an underground legend, Woodie's mother made an alarming post on an East Coco Records internet forum, stating that after Woodie died, he had been robbed by a, quote, evil girl. To this day, circumstances surrounding Woodie's death remain somewhat of a mystery. Online rumors spread that Woodie died in a town called Florence in Oregon. This rumor traces back to an online post by someone named Sharon M. We were able to verify that Sharon M. is in fact related to Woodie and resides in Florence, Oregon. We will leave it at that. Another rumor is that Woodie was distraught following the death of his wife, but we could not find any confirmation that Woodie was even married. We were also unable to locate a coroner's report, but did find confirmation of death from the Social Security Death Index. Nevertheless, not even Woodie's close friends know exactly what happened to him.
Damn, still can't believe my end is gone. Can't shake the feeling in my gut, there's something more that went on. But you the only one that knows the truth, which adds to the stress. So many questions still unanswered, I can't seem to let rest. It's weighing heavy.
But here's what we do know about the days leading up to Woodie's death. An IRS tax lien was levied against him in late 2006 for $10,282. He made frequent trips to Oregon and Washington. He used several burner phone numbers and even used a fake name to obtain a P.O. box in Paradise, California. In June 2009, Lenny Cervantes, who was a close friend of Woodie, died in a mysterious car accident in Paradise. Nearly 30 years have passed since the fateful night of the Veterans Hall shooting, and a lot has changed. The men who prosecuted Snoop went on to become a leading U.S. attorney and a judge, respectively, while his lawyer was also appointed to the bench. Detective Orman remains in law enforcement after an esteemed career at the Antioch Police Department, and Woodie's music is as popular as it ever was, with many of his friends dedicating their own rap careers to keeping his legacy alive. For Snoop, though, almost nothing has changed. The Innocence Project considered representing him, but ultimately turned it down because it generally reserves resources for cases with DNA evidence. His appeals have struck out, and his first parole board hearing went horribly. And unless he shows up at the next hearing with his hat in hand, ready to confess to something he still insists he did not do, it's unlikely to go any better. Barring a long-shot pardon from the governor, the only hope for Gabe Roberson would involve a review by the Contra Costa District Attorney's Conviction Integrity Unit, which, ironically, is reviewing thousands of convictions due to a massive scandal involving alleged corruption, criminal activity, and racism within the Antioch Police Department. But while none of the involved officers were around when Snoop, Woodie, and Blackbird were roaming the streets of Antioch, many in the local community see it as vindication to their claims of rampant, ongoing corruption within the police department. There has been but one major recent development to all of this, but once again, it came from the rap world, not the court system. In mid-2022, a Pittsburgh rapper named AWAX, who was the longtime friend of Woodie, put out a song called East Cocoa, a clear tribute to Woodie's record label of the same name. In it, AWAX claimed first-hand knowledge of a confession tape that Woodie allegedly recorded shortly before his death, where, quote, everything that Snoop is in jail for, he, as in Woodie, admitted to. That tape, if it ever surfaces, could be a get-out-of-prison card for Gabe, combined with a witness statement that indicated that a man with distinctive blonde reddish hair was holding the revolver. But, like so many subjects of intrigue in this tragic tale, the evidence of its existence is limited to the lyrics of a classic Bay Area hip-hop record. So far.
Yeah, and I love all my family, all my homies. You know, I never turn my back on any of y'all. How could I? Look what Snoop did. Loyalty above all laws.
That's crazy. So they saying that it was really Woodie the whole time, and he was in jail. Oh my God. It kind of makes sense though when you think about it, because if you look at Woodie's hair around that time, it kind of looks similar. That's why when he said reddish, I thought they was gonna say it was Woodie. They said it was Gabe, but you know how the streets is. He not gonna say, you know, who it was, bro. So bro was just in jail, allegedly, right? Just being loyal to, you know what I'm saying, to his bro, Woodie, bro. And they said that it was a tape, you know, his mate. And you gotta think about it. AWAX, right? He has no reason to lie, right? Woodie's not here no more, so it's like he had no chance to lie. Now, this is what they're saying, you know what I'm saying? That's what they're saying, bro. So we don't know how true that is, but damn, bro. What a fire documentary. I'm not gonna lie. This is probably the best documentary I ever watched. And I don't really watch much, but I actually watched this whole thing, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Leave a like on this video if y'all enjoyed it, bro. I hope, if they haven't already, find justice, bro. Like, because if he really is in jail for something he didn't do, bro, like, come on, bro. Like, especially with the technology we got now, bro, we should be able to solve this, bro. Like, if he free, let him out, bro. But, man, that's going to be the end of the video, bro. Make sure y'all leave a like on the vid, gang. And I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure, bro. Let me know what y'all want me to